So I'm here today to talk to you about the Social Political Economic Event Database, the SPEED project at the University of Illinois. We have a very simple goal: to catalog the world's events, 1946 to present, in every country of the world. Well, just how do we propose to do this, you might ask? Well, let's start with data. Events and conflicts we see today often have long-standing roots, going back decades, centuries, or even millennia. We need historical context to understand how significant an action is. A labor demonstration might be routine in one country, but might be unheard of in another. It's critical to get a historical perspective to be able to understand the importance of modern events and how they tie together. Historical data, however, is very difficult to obtain in digital format. Some major papers have back files going back to the 1800s, but by and large, most papers have the last decade or so at most. We've digitized at the Client Center several intelligence products that monitor global news coverage, radio, TV, newspapers, magazines, since 1946. Now, they did all the work of transcribing and translating this into English and monitoring all of these radio stations, especially in areas where radio and TV form the basis of most news distribution. And then we combine all of this with the modern era, where we bring down about 100,000 reports from across the world each day. Now, only a small fraction of all this news coming in from across the world is actually relevant to us. We care about the stability of nations, riots, assassinations, political expression, not sports scores. So we need to take, for instance, the 6 million articles from the New York Times during this period and reduce that down to about the 400,000 that actually contain events of relevance to us. And language changes over time. Rebels become freedom fighters, become insurgents. So we've trained advanced computer models then that filter through millions upon millions of these articles in just a few hours at greater than 98% accuracy. Now, computers are very good in particular at spotting brief mentions buried in large amounts of text. Now, this conference has the word mapping in it, so we're all acutely aware of the importance of space and understanding conflict. Now, there are many tools out there like Google Maps that can convert a geographic reference to a grid coordinate. But here at the Client Center, we've got to go through material from every corner of the earth that was often written for a local audience. Is Cairo in Egypt, Italy, Peru, or Cuba? Well, all four, actually. So we need to take all these reports, and we have to understand the context of that report to understand, well, which Cairo is this particular report referring to? And one article does not equal one event. Articles often discuss multiple events, such as 2 different riots on the same day. New York Times actually averages about 1.7 events per article. So and some articles contain 15 or more different events, with the article talking, well, there was a riot today, and that was in show of solidarity for yesterday's assassination, which in turn was due to a riot, and so on and so forth. And if you have 3 different riots in an article, and you're reading through it, and now you see another reference to a riot, is this just more detail about one of those riots up here, or is this yet another riot down here? And this is still very much an area of active research in computer science. We still don't understand how a human reads through a news article and understands, is able to piece out, well, there's 3 different riots being discussed here, and here's all the details. This detail goes up here, this detail goes down here. And so that's something we're actively working on at the Client Center, is building these computer models to allow us to take these enormous volumes of text and convert those then to database entries. But it's not enough to just record that a riot took place, for instance. What was its location? How many people were involved? What weapons were used? How many were injured? How many were killed? What religious group were they? What ethnic group were they of? If you see an article, if you see a reference in an article, rioters attack police with bats. Well, if this is an article with multiple events in it, well, which riot did they use bats in, the morning or the afternoon one? And this is very, very important because details are scattered across articles. And so we need to be able to go beyond just recording a riot took place in this city yesterday, to be able to bring in all that information, especially to understand ethnic conflict, for instance. We need to know, well, these were Shiite Muslims, and they were rioting because Sunni Muslims had come in and killed one of their leaders, for instance. And that requires, so we end up having to then use machines to do a lot of filtering for us, to take all of this material and bring it together, and then humans to do a lot of the interpretive components. And we also try to capture the links that are present in events. So if there's an article that's saying yesterday 100 people rioted in Baghdad, and they were showing support for they were condemning the assassination of their leader yesterday. We want to capture that information. Now, obviously, you can't necessarily simply trust that information at face value that, well, the reporter said that they were doing this because of X, but we believe it's important to capture that information for later analysis. So what does this all actually look like? Well, we take those tens of millions of articles that are coming in from across the world, And then we use machines, first off, to take all these articles and filter out all the irrelevant stuff and bin down just the relevant articles. And then we take those relevant articles then, and we pull out, well, in this particular little article, well, there's 4 different events being described here. And we pull out each of these, and it becomes a database entry. So we've got this one, Baghdad, assassination, killed, and about 350 variables off here to the right. And then we capture, well, this happened because of this, and then this led to this, and this was unrelated, just another event that's being described there. And again, using a combination of humans and machines to do this entire process here. But why? Why bother doing all of this? Why does this matter? Well, computers can't take a pile of news articles and answer a question like, what % of labor riots in region X involve more than 100 people and were ended by police violence, for instance? When we convert all those articles to individual database entries like this, it's real easy to basically run a query like that across here and look for that type of information and understand in what countries are mass protests ended by police violence on a routine basis. And once we convert it to that, these type of questions can be answered. We can build what are called scenario models. We'll never be able to predict human activity like the weather and say, riot at 6 p.m. in Paris. But we'll be able to do things like say, well, given that this event down here occurred, here are 3 possible outcomes, likely outcomes, and say, there's a 70% probability that this is going to occur. So take the election violence in Iran, for instance. What's the probability that the government is going to begin doing mass crackdowns on people? What's the probability that they're going to agree to a shared governance model? So by doing that, then, we can sort of build out. Once we have this historical model, we can take something that occurs like that, place this into this enormous model of human activity, and then say, well, this event right here looks like events that we've seen in the past in these models. Here's what happened in those situations, and then be able to predict from there what are, as things kind of grow. Maybe here's something that nothing occurred, but here this branched out and led to this and led to this and led to this. And by creating these massive event networks, just connecting everything that's happening across the world, we're able to get a much broader understanding of what's occurring across the world. Thank you very much.